So in terms of very impressive, so let's go next level. Who actually made you think, gee, where have I got him on my ladder, or this is ahead of schedule, or those sorts of things? So very impressive. Richmond were probably that impressive. You thought, gee, if I got him in my top 4, if I got him in my top 8. So anyone that left Richmond out of their 8, I think, scrambling to change that. Carlton and Melbourne was a cracking game. Both clubs had a lot to talk about, and we'll go through that more specifically. The Dogs and Brisbane was probably the classiest and hardest preseason game we have had for some time. Mm-hmm. I thought St Kilda, seeing Gresham and Marshall do what they did, really was super impressive, and that was another really strong performance. And the Sydney Swans pretty much altered my thoughts on their contested work. The flaw in their game, the hole in their game the last couple of years, they haven't been tough enough. Yep. And they just assaulted the Kangaroos. Now, is that the Kangaroos or is that Sydney? Not sure, so we wait on that. But you can only be as impressive as your opposition allow, and they did that. As you were, at expectation, Essendon, I thought they were still very good. Hawthorn, I expected to be like this, so I'm not down on them at all. The Giants and Collingwood, I think we're seeing what we expected to see. The Crows, they were probably unlucky not to be a little bit better than, elevated to very impressive. I thought they were okay. I thought they were really good, particularly for a half, but at expectation. The Eagles, I thought they were very good, and they unlucky not to be in the next level as well. But they found a way to hang in despite having injuries all over the place. And North Melbourne just in there for me, because I don't expect them to be winning games, but I probably expected a little bit more, which leaves 2 teams. And these are the 2 teams, despite the fact that they won on the weekend, that are on watch and that I'm a fraction concerned about. Fremantle and Port Adelaide. Fremantle were entitled to blow that game apart yesterday. And it's difficult when there's no crowd and there's no real emotional investment. You just had a little throwback to a couple of years ago without the crowd, and I felt sorry for the players, but Did they stamp a performance and say, yeah, we are charging to the top 8, and it's early and we're not sort of going too far with it, but I just thought they were a bit sort of humdrum. And Port Adelaide, that first half was pretty disappointing. Okay, they went whack in the third term, but they're in a different weight class to the Adelaide Crows. So I just thought that they were a bit underwhelming.
So shall we delve a little further through all of those categories, or why don't we do the 2 who are on your concern list, and then we'll head to the other end of it and work our way through the impressives in particular. So stay with Port Adelaide, who were, well, they said they got the reality check in the first practice match, which is not really the language of the off-season, and they were underwhelming for a half. That's certainly right, before they looked a little bit more like what we would expect in the third quarter.
Yeah, so they were seriously disappointing the previous week. The Gold Coast bashed them up, and we haven't said that about the Gold Coast for, I don't think, ever. And they do start seasons well, so you temper it and you say, okay, maybe they're having a look at a forward line without Charlie Dixon in there, and who are the answers? I thought that... I thought the Crows' ball movement and their run and overlap handball got through them at times. And you start thinking, okay, gee, what happens if, what happens if Aliir doesn't have this big intercept impact? And he did. He still had a dozen on the weekend. But what if he doesn't have that All-Australian type year? And what if Ollie Wines, and again he had 35 odd touches. What if he's not there? What's next? And we saw Butters and Rozee exposed to more midfield opportunity. And you can make your own mind up about that as to what sort of players they are. But if you're going to go in the midfield, I think you've got to be getting 10 plus contested possessions to say, yeah, I'm your answer. Zach Butters goes in 13 contested possessions. We know Ollie Wine's 15. I'm probably still waiting for Connor Rozee to show me that he's a contested possession clearance winning midfielder. Outside of that, his skill is next level. His finishing is at the pointy end of the competition. But how do you get your hands on the ball in the midfield? Can you get more? Can you get more of your own ball? And that's probably what I'm looking to see. And I'm probably looking forward of centre. Georgiades was terrific in the end. But if you just look at the first half, and I think of all these games on the weekend, I'm looking at the starts when the game's there to be separated. So I'm not down on them, but I just thought we might have seen more from Port on the weekend than we did.
And then you did the Fremantle West Coast game last night. Give us a little bit of a deeper dive on the Dockers.
Yeah, Brayshaw, fantastic. Clark, great acquisition. He's going to be terrific for them across half-back. And Geelong probably knew that. When they let him go, they knew that they just couldn't get the best out of him for whatever reason, and that sort of thing, that can happen. Sarong worked really hard, but they were up against an undermanned midfield, in particular for the West Coast Eagles. Tim Kelly was awesome, so you have to accept that he's a top liner in our competition. But outside of that, you know, they're missing Yo, they're missing Shuey. There's holes everywhere in the West Coast lineup at the moment. You know, there's 10 players on their injury list that are almost first picked. So they should have really got hold of them. They win by 13 points in the end. They never really gapped them. I thought it's not like they got out to a 35-point lead, 40-point lead and took players off. They were beaten at clearance. They were smashed at contested possession. So these are the sorts of things that we're looking for. You know, like, where is the improvement for Fremantle? Same thing. This has been a 7-year rebuild. You know, this is time now. It is time to step up and stamp a performance. So I know they were inaccurate in front of goal, and there's a lot to like about, and we talked a lot about Michael Frederick in the coverage yesterday. 1 goal, 4, should have been 5 straight goals, really. He's a better finisher than he showed us yesterday. Michael Walters was very good to see him back into some touch. But outside of that, you're probably thinking, okay, Taberner started well, dropped out of the game. What else? You know, Sean Darcy showed that he's picking up where he left off last year. So there's pockets of things that you love. But the complete performance, I think even Justin Longmuir would say that's miles from where they need to be.
In the impressive lists, and it was, so that's 2 weeks in a row. It's been really easy to be struck by Richmond, so they're in good shape. The Melbourne Carlton game I thoroughly enjoyed.
Just before you leave the Richmond one, it's not how they play. It's who now they're playing with. So Tarrant comes in and could have a Brian Lake type effect. You just know that job's going to get done, and then you get Bolter wherever you want him, ruck or forward. So that's full club. So that's recruiting, in he comes. You got Gibcus, who will take a contender for Mark of the Year at some stage this year, Jared. We said this about Liam Ryan in the preseason a few years ago, and people laugh. But this kid's got unbelievable ups. He just goes straight up. His vertical leap is ridiculous. But there's other things as well. Like Soldo, some of Soldo's pack crashing contest work in the forward half made you think, gee, do they have to go a bit taller with their selection? I mean, Nankervis is playing, Bolter's playing, Soldo. You say, well, maybe he has to be in the lineup, given that you just don't see that very often. And on the flip side, everyone fell in love with Josh Ward. Everyone fell in love with him. So we're not sort of spoiling the party there from a Hawks point of view. But the way Richmond played, that 3-man weave is back. Every time they get the ball, formation it's like a rugby line out, and they just work their way through. We talked about Bolter, Edwards, and Bolton, Edwards, and Baker last week. Well, now you throw Bolter in there. So it's a totally different looking forward mix. And it's going to hum.
So how much more prominent in your thinking are they than where you were in prospect coming into the season?
I had them. I have to look at the magazine. I had them around my top 4. Yeah. But when I see a healthy looking Richmond, they're right in the race again. I mean, all we're looking for is, can you make preliminary final week at the moment? Everyone wants to talk about winning the flag. They're 50-50 games in this. So let's just talk about, can you make preliminary final week? And right now I'm elevating them straight into that 4.
Yep. Carlton Melbourne was a really enjoyable game to watch. It is skewed a little bit by the goals from 50, so it's sort of hard to know exactly what to do with that. Melbourne are well declared. We've seen Carlton a couple of weeks in a row. The Blues are on your impressive list.
They were very impressive, Jared. And again, we're all looking for what Vossi's done, and it's sometimes you have to see it. But the 2 stamps that he's put on this team, one is forward half pressure. They tackle and harass right now like we've never seen Carlton do. You know, Carlton have put midfielders to half forward. They've put midfielders to deep forward and tried to manufacture goals, and lost a little bit of what the modern game's done. Get it in, harass, force turnover, create scores. That's been changed instantly. So that's been a demand and not negotiable under Michael Voss. Huge tick. We'll show on 360 this week their ability to carry the ball for 5 to 6 to 8 metres and then handball forward again, carry again, is getting the ball over the top of those set aggressive defenders. And Harry Mackay will be absolutely licking his lips at what's coming. De Koning was a breath of fresh air. The way he went after the ball in the air was just terrific. We talked about Lockie O'Brien when we did that game out at Carlton, was Carlton and St Kilda, and I said, I think this guy's got a spot. I think he stamped that again. But sometimes you just have to see your best players be the best players. And to see Paddy Cripps, this is a guy that's copped a lot of feedback the last couple of years. He's just one of those players that attracts criticism because of the way he plays. There's nothing wrong with the way he plays. But he stepped through like it was men versus boys and was absolutely terrific last week. So just thrilled that Voss is getting what he wants out of his recruits as well. You see Cherry, you can see what Hewitt's doing. So this is a full club correction, but all the pieces are in the right spots now, aren't they? The half-back flankers are where they should be.
Yes.
The pressure smalls, I think Durden got injured, but I'd just love to see where he's at. And Owies were just terrific. So I really like the formation of their team. It just looks like it should look, given what the game demands now.
And what did you have on Melbourne?
I'm not concerned about Melbourne at all. When they sort of sensed, okay, we haven't really done much here. They went bang, bang, bang and got themselves into the game, and then their contested possession elevated. Their ability to move the ball looked totally different. Bailey Fritsch, who we hadn't seen for an hour, just finds a way to finish with 5 goals. You think, how'd that happen? Yep. So they've got it. We know we sort of are not concerned at all with Melbourne. I'm not anyway. So let's just hold on that. They've come off a limited pre-season, so maybe they're a fraction behind the other teams at the moment. So their challenge is obviously to just hang in for the first. They got the same problem as the Western Bulldogs. So round 1 it won't be a problem. They'll both be at the same level, if you like, given the exact same pre-season. And then just got to find a way to hang in over the next few weeks, like all premiership/grand final teams have to do at the start of the following year. Brisbane showed that they're going deep again. There's no doubt about that. Their forward half work was terrific. Charlie Cameron just put on a show. Zach Bailey's going next level. Write him down, Jared. He's going to be in the top 10 in the competition by the end of the year.
You've been on him the whole way through.
Well, you just see, the more you see of him, the more creative he is. And he's in that perfect sweet spot of, I think, his 5th year in the system. He's 70 games of AFL footy. So it is now time. If you are that sort of player, it is now time to rise. I think that he'll do that. You see, from a Dogs point of view, you see what Adam Treloar, his impact on this group. Bontempelli was classic Bont. But the talking point for me with this, and we're looking for little things, okay? So without Bruce there this year, so he kicked 48 goals last year, so he's not going to be there for the bulk of the year. Jamara's not quite at the level yet. Bont as a starting full forward / centre half forward is not as effective as a forward as he is rolling forward as a midfielder, coming down with a mismatch. So I'm not a massive fan of him as a forward. Rolling forward, big tick. Unbelievable player. You wouldn't denigrate him at all. English can do it. Steph Martin, haven't seen him do it. So all eggs go into the Aaron Norton basket. And this is a real problem for them, I think. And there's no way around it. There's no obvious answer. It's going to be a lot of pressure on a young man, and a guy that was still finding his way as a forward, isn't he? He had a big year last year, kicking 47 goals, but the back half of the year wasn't as productive as the first half. He's going to be the sole target, so opposition teams are going to know where the ball's going. He's difficult to stop, and he was terrific again the other night. He thinks every ball coming inside 50 is his.
Yep,
and that's a great mindset for a player of his calibre. But he kicked the 3 goals. He was targeted 8 times, 14 times the previous week. So they're big numbers, and it's a big responsibility for a young guy. So Dog supporters just have to cross their fingers and hope that Aaron stays healthy, But how many goals is he going to have to kick for the Dogs to be their preliminary final week?
So do you think more than last year because of the Bruce absence?
Yeah, it has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, logic says if the two of them combined have kicked just short of 100 goals and one's not there for the bulk of the year and there's no obvious replacement, Darcy's not there, Jamara's not there, can you play? I mean, we heard Luke Beveridge say he's going to play Tim English as a ruck. He needs to play ruck minutes, but that's what they're going to ask of him this year. So he's not going to be down there. So then you're back to Waitman, who's still learning the caper. So that's a huge challenge. So what's he going to have to kick? If he kicked 50 last year or 47, are we talking 65? Are we talking more than that? It's just a big challenge for a young player as a solo target. And the best teams, in my opinion, have multiple options. Yep. And that's their challenge now, to just not rely on Aaron.
Dogs and Lions both on the impressive list. What are your notes on the Saints to have them in that column as well?
Gee, I thought they were really good. And every Saints supporter you talk to says, "Oh, we just haven't had Gresham. We just haven't had, we haven't had this, haven't had that." And they're spot on. Gresham comes in, he stamps his class pretty much instantly, doesn't he? Rowan Marshall and Gresham, two that we haven't really seen. They've missed blocks of footy. Brad Hill, we sort of know what Brad Hill can be. He had 30-odd touches, but I was really disappointed for them with Hunter Clark going down. It's just thought as a prime midfielder, he had all the tools. He's got the ability to get himself out from inside congestion to outside and be so creative. But then he went down. Obviously, Billings is a concern for them with the hamstring as well. But I really like the way they defended. Essendon's ball use is a constant threat. To hold them to 9 goals, I thought was a huge tick. And I'd seen a lot of Essendon through the pre-season, and I think they would have been shocked with what they come up against. It was a really strong defensive output from the Saints. Pressure game was really good. So, you have to give credit where credit's due. I've been hard on the Saints the last couple of years. I have, and I still want to see it, come round one. But they've got enough talent there, and when the systems are round about the mark, particularly defensively, then they've got some tools. They've got some ways to hurt you. So big tick to the way they played, and let's just hope that Jay Gresham has a 20-plus game season for them.
And what grabbed you about the Sydney Swans to have them in this category as well?
Well, they bashed the Kangaroos, and that's another discussion for another day. But I think they won contested possession by about 30. I mean, that's a big number. We talked about their under-23s or the 23 and unders for the Sydney Swans being the best in the competition. And if you're not full book on who Justin McInerney is, you're about to find out. This is a guy that plays that wing sort of role, high half forward sort of role. 30 touches on the weekend, 8 of those score involvements. He kicks a goal. His ball use is pure. So they lose Dawson. They've just got this next wave that they can just plug and play. It's a bit of tough love for some of these youngsters last year. That they were forced to just keep playing. When they were rolling early last year, they didn't rest them. They didn't hide them from frontline responsibilities. So now you see a Chad Warner come in and have close to 30 touches, half of those contested. That's what they desperately needed. He had 7 clearances. So they haven't been, despite the myth and the mystique around Sydney, they haven't been a tough team for years, Jared. In terms of contested possession and clearance, they haven't been that. When we think of Sydney of 2012. Like, we've got to be updated with they're a ball movement team and they're a great defensive team at stopping the opposition ball movement, but they haven't been tough enough. So the whole pre-season has been about getting tougher, and you see them stamp it on the weekend. Rowbottom, 15 contested possessions. Warner, 13. Hickey the ruckman you'd expect to be high in there. He had 11. McInerney, 11. They're names we haven't really been throwing up when we talk about Sydney.
Yep.
And we talk about, maybe they've forced Kennedy out of the midfield. I'm not saying he's not tough as a player, but it just hasn't happened. So the opportunity and the baton has been changed to this younger brigade, and we saw it. Heaney everyone talks about. He kicked 4 goals. That's no surprise to me that Heaney kicks 4 goals. No surprise at all. But the rest in terms of who dictated terms in the game, it was the younger brigade. So that's why I think they're coming fast. They're ahead of time. Collingwood, we've been waiting to see what the ball movement's going to look like, and for Collingwood fans, you got to see it. So 67 marks. So don't play the control game. Play the territory game. Get it in. 58 inside 50s. So that's a huge number, given the amount of ball that they had. They were out-possessed by almost 50 disposals by the Giants, who took 110 marks. So they're playing the opposite sort of game. So I think that reads really well to get opportunities. Okay, they haven't got a forward that's really lighting it up at the moment in that forward 50. I think Henry kicked 3, but it was they weren't a true classic, marking type performance. So there's a bit of work to do forward of centre, as there always is at Collingwood. And your man Goggle Cox, I don't know if he's going to be the answer, Jared, but there's work. The initial work from Craig McRae, the evidence is there that it's working, and that the players they'll get better at this. Lipinski's going to be a bit of a loss, but you just know that the system and there's work to do with the contest stuff. You'd be really disappointed to be hammered by 20 contested possessions. GWS made them look a little bit second rate at times, at chunks in this game, but the system is there.
I think I would have had the Giants in the impressive category. What are your notes on the Giants?
Yeah, it was sort of the same guys. That's the only reason why I left them there. It was Kelly and Taranto, and we know. I know Tom Green's really young, but we've sort of seen those guys. Their midfield was pretty much the midfield we've been watching for 12 to 18 months. So I wasn't as blown away with that. Bobby Hill was really good in that forward half, kicked really creative, kicked 2 or 3 goals. So I like that. Riccardi reared up. So what they had at one end, they had Himmelberg and Riccardi. What would Riccardi have kicked on the weekend if he played for Collingwood? So that's the sort of player they're lacking or they're needing. But he was really good, and he said, I'm there. That stamped me for round 1. He probably should have kicked 5 goals. He missed a couple of sitters, but I really liked their contested game, the Giants. Their ball movement it's still a work in progress, a little bit clunky, but their defensive stuff was really good. So we've been critical of them without the ball for 5 years. So they looked a lot better, forced a lot of turnover, a lot of intercept work. So I thought they were better defensively. Quick thought on the Bombers. Tracking beautifully. Ball movement failed them on the weekend. Still need a forward to stand up and say, I'm your man, aside from Peter Wright. So things are good at Essendon. I'm not sure they're in my preliminary final 4 yet. They've got some work to do, but they're coming.
Hawthorn?
Scratching my head a little bit with the Hawks. It was a bit of a tough watch. Not a lot to sort of write home about except for the kid Ward, who was terrific. So I want to see more. It's a little bit like the Kangaroos. So what's Sam Mitchell's game plan going to look like? We've got to give him a little bit of time. He hasn't even started yet, effectively. But David Noble, the same thing. What did we watch? What was that from the Kangaroos? Got bashed around the footy. And then what was next? Apart from the kid, Tristan Sherry was really good. Jason Horne-Francis was really good. But what's the system? What does it look like? I'm still waiting to see it.
West Coast?
Taking a knife to a gunfight for a little while. They're going to be seriously banged up, and I think the importance of Tim Kelly shone through on the weekend. He was a one-man midfield, and nearly got him over the line. So they're going to find it hard. They've got an opportunity. The first month of football is not as savage as it could be. So if they can find a way to split it 2-2, or even get to 3-1, given that opportunity, then they'll hang on. But I just feel like Simo's going to hit the rebuild button. Rounds 2 or 3.
And Adelaide.
Work to do. First half, okay. Third quarter, terrible. But that's going to be their lot. We're just looking for little bits of competitiveness as they grow. I thought McHenry showed some real signs. To me, Laird's going to be a huge loss. So that's a worry. Rochelle, we talked about him in the pre-season. We said, don't be afraid to have a couple of stray dollars on him for the rising star, because he's going to do some things. He could win goal of the year in his first year.
So he's your dandy Andy.
He's your dandy Andy. Very
Knock off the
very good
horse race.
I like
hey, raise the bat on the way out. Happy birthday, Kingy. Good to see you. Thanks for the means test.
Thanks, G.